Hey everybody, it's Courtney Barriger, your host of Environmental Style Now, the A to Z podcast on all that is sustainable fashion. On this episode of ES Now, we have Samata of Red Carpet Green Dress. This is a women-led platform for sustainable fashion design that brings eco-fashion to the Oscars and then some. Now, their goal is to draw attention to the importance of sustainable practices in fashion and be a part of bringing those solutions to the global market. I'm really excited to have her on today. Hello, I'm Courtney Barriger, and this is ES Now. Today, my guest, Samata, CEO of Red Carpet Green Dress, is here to tell us all about what her organization is up to and give us insight into why luxury design is important in the sustainable fashion realm. Samata is a British-born Ghanian entrepreneur working across fashion, media, and entertainment. She is the author of 2 books, the Tribe Empowerment Journal and the Fashion Designer's Resource Book, and is a contributing writer to Vogue, Huffington Post, The Guardian, and so many more amazing magazines. And she's also one of the faces of Lancome's Tient, Idole, Shade My Power campaign. It's really an honor to have her as a guest today. Let's jump right in. Where did Red Carpet Green Dress get started, and how did it evolve?
So it started, so this is the thing. So basically, Susie Amos Cameron, who is the founder of Red Carpet Green Dress, she was going to the Oscars with her husband, James Cameron, for his nomination for Avatar. Have you seen that, by the way? Have you seen Avatar?
Yeah.
I stressed up, but I don't assume, because I'm like, not everyone's, seen it. But so it was kind of this film which had a hugely environmental message, but wasn't really promoted in that way. The technology is what everybody talked about, but actually the environmental message is the big thing about it, right? So she's going to the Oscars with her husband, and they're huge environmentalists. So they wanted to take the question of what are you wearing and flip it on its head. And to me, what that really shows is you can create spaces for the conversations you want to have simply by how you interpret a question, And I think a lot of the time we feel like, and it's very much that, the conversations are not happening that we would like to have happen, and we're not being asked the questions we would like to be asked. And so I say, in those situations, make the question behave to your answer. What are you wearing could have been, oh, I'm wearing a dress by so-and-so, and then moving on to talk about the film. But because she had created this, and because they'd gone with the intention of talking about the sustainability, it became, I'm wearing a sustainable gown that's been made using XYZ, and it's been dyed with this. And, it was created by a student who won our design contest. And it feels great to be on the carpet talking about fashion and the impact fashion has. And it just became this thing. So I think we have to just make spaces behave or bend or accommodate what we have to say, because otherwise we won't always get the shot. We won't always get the chance to have the conversations we want to have. So I love that whole thing of not going off script, but making room for yourself and making room for what you want and need to say,
Yeah, well, it makes sense as to why it became a thing, because every time there's a red carpet event, someone's going to ask you, who are you wearing?
Exactly.
What are you wearing? So that I was going to ask you why red carpet, but I think you just answered it.
Yeah, well, no, and I think, no, but the bigger question, no, I think that question you already had is still super, super relevant, because this is the thing. So one of the things that people often say about this project, or I think really anything that is a single example of anything, is, well, what's that one thing going to do in the big scheme of it, right? There's always that, well, it's just this one thing. How's it going to make a difference? And, I've got a long answer and a short answer for this, because it really does get to me, that question, in terms of, I find it super frustrating. Just because anybody who's ever been on the outside of anything, or anyone who's ever wanted to start a conversation that's important and nobody's done it before could always have that as the thing that stops them doing it. Well, I'm just one person, nobody's going to be interested in this. What's the real big impact of it? And, none of that's valid. For us, the red carpet at the Oscars, first of all, it's one of the most watched red carpets of all time. So when it comes to viewership and global visibility, you can't really get bigger than that. It's watched by people across the world, and they tune in from that red carpet moment. So the idea that we have these global eyeballs on this campaign, and how can we create global conversation about this? And the reason that that's important, the reason it's important not to just focus on local conversations, is because sustainable fashion is a global conversation. It affects people around the planet. And I think there's a danger that often it's made to look like a certain group of the population own the conversation, are leaders in the conversation, and steer the conversation. And so what we try and do on that red carpet, even with the talent we choose, because to date we've worked with talent from over 21 countries, talent and designers from over 21 countries. It's important for us to show, first of all, sustainability through the lens of people around the world and how they interpret it. And second of all, show it on people who represent the world, and how that's a conversation as well, because it's all well and good for us to talk about sustainable design, but if all of our ambassadors look the same, what we're basically saying is these are the acceptable people to hear this message from, and it's not cool anymore. It was never cool, and we're not tolerating that anymore. So that's another thing about that red carpet. And then on the other hand, I think apart from visibility, global conversation and representation, creativity, the idea that when you're going to a red carpet event as a designer, and I'm sure you as a designer would approach what you're making for that red carpet completely differently than you would if you were designing for a kind of day to evening, or even just a wear to the office look. We get to experiment with things that we couldn't do normally. We had Vivienne Westwood incorporating chocolate wrappers into the bodice of a corseted beaded gown. We're dyeing with natural dyes and creating those incredible colors. It's an opportunity to have fun with design, and because sustainability can be seen as a little frumpy sometimes.
Kind of granola.
Honestly, you took the word out of my mouth. Because it can be seen as a bit granola, we have an opportunity to reshape it. We have an opportunity to reshape the visual for people, and it's one that can't be missed. And we're so grateful to the Academy because they give us that space on that carpet every year. And the reason I know we need to be there is because we are still often the only or one of 2 or 3 sustainable pieces on the carpet. It's not enough. Like the fact that we're still, if we weren't there, it just shows that there would still be years when there isn't sustainable fashion on that carpet. That's not good enough. So we still need to be there, and we still need to be pushing for this conversation to be something that ultimately people are going to be asked, well, what are you wearing that's sustainable? Like that would be the dream question, tell us about the sustainability of your look. Like that's what we want to get to. So people are there having to think about it and incorporate it. That's the dream.
It is so cool that you have created a world stage for sustainability. It's super impressive and so specific. I really applaud you guys.
Oh, well, that's kind of you to say. It's really Susie Amos Cameron and her vision for what should be happening and how we should be creating spaces for these conversations, helping people understand that we're all part of it. She always said to me, and now I always say, we all wear clothes every single day. So the idea that some people are in this conversation and some people are out doesn't even make sense,
And how do you guys find designers outside of the contest? And also, how do you find these willing, beautiful actors and celebrities to sign up?
Yeah, I think I would be lying if I didn't say it was a struggle, because it is a struggle, but it's got so much easier. And over the past few years, it's very much a case where we have to make hard decisions about who we want to work with this year or who we'll wait to work with next year because we're having more people approaching us. But in the beginning, it was this kind of ridiculous, almost comedic dance of like trying to get people to be interested, trying to convince them that they would not be wearing a granola / hemp bag, trying to convince them that we did not expect them to wear a grass skirt on the red carpet at the Oscars. Like, it was just ridiculous what people thought it looked like. And so I would say that sustainable fashion had a branding problem. You know, it had a visual branding problem. But now, so in the beginning it was hard. That's just to contextualize it. So when people like Missy Pyle, who was in The Artist that was nominated the year she walked, or Naomi Harris, who was in the James Bond film, and when it was nominated and she walked for us, we have to be extremely grateful to them because they really stepped into something that was so unknown and took a bit of a risk. Of course, it's easier when you know that somebody like Vivienne Westwood's kind of helping to get the gown made, or, you know, there's a reassurance there. But still, it was kind of, how is this going to go down? And it was hard work, even getting press to write about it properly, you know, to explain to them. They would write stuff that was just reinforcing this idea that they would write about the dress looking good in a surprise, you know, and it's like, this is not helping us. Like, you being like, shock horror, the sustainable gown looked great, doesn't help us, because it makes people feel like, yes, I was right to think it shouldn't look good and that this is an anomaly. But we both know, because you work in this industry too, that there's so many beautiful sustainable designs out there, and there always have been. We just maybe didn't know about them. So now it's got a bit easier. So part of my role is really selecting the talent, and it's hard every single year. Or coordinating, collaborating with brands, or, you know, talent agents to kind of choose the right people. But I'm happy about who we've worked with. I feel like we've worked with people that represent the globe, from Lakeith Stanfield to Priyanka Bose to Danielle McDonald. You know, it's just, I'm excited about it, and I hope we continue to have people that can represent our campaign in a similar way, you know?
Yeah, it sounds like, you know, slow, painful growth. But again, a rebranding of sustainable fashion it's long overdue. I think now more than ever, people are sort of like, their ears are kind of prickling and they're kind of looking into it.
Yes.
Where it's not, where a beautiful gown is not an exception.
Exactly. A beautiful gown, a beautiful suit, a beautiful piece of design. Because ultimately, the red carpet for us is also, it's kind of an example of what's possible, but it's not all that's possible. So yes, you can achieve sustainability by using natural dyes. Yes, you can achieve sustainability by using these textiles. These are biodegradable. This is recycled XYZ. This is zero waste. This was, you know, repurposed lining. These are examples. Take them and apply them to the fashion house that makes sustainable fashion, but they do t-shirts and jeans. There's some lessons in here for everyone in the design community. And I think that's the point as well. The red carpet gives us a chance to demonstrate what's possible. We imagine there, you know, we talk about it, we give you something, but we imagine what's possible there. And with that, then you take that and say, okay, well, this is a whole philosophy, or this is a whole process I can incorporate, you know, zero water, whatever it is. This is also something that I can do. So it's kind of, that's how we try and make it something that people can take away with them. Even the vintage thing, you know, we've done a couple of good, beautiful vintage pieces, but it was weird that a few people had said to me when we did the first one, which I think would have been Emma Roberts in 2017. It could have been before, but just, I didn't even think vintage was sustainable, you know? They didn't really connect it as something sustainable. So it's educational, but it means, well, okay, I shop vintage, so I'm part of this. So all in all, it's kind of a good way to bring everyone in.
When did you first hear about the need to change the fashion industry?
So I'd worked as a fashion designer for a while. I didn't study fashion or anything like that. I studied economics, finance and management, but I used the opportunity of being in London, which is obviously a heaving fashion capital, to immerse myself in the fashion industry. So I came at it from a very conventional mainstream perspective and used to just design. I was self-taught. So I didn't have an understanding about things needing to be done better. I had an understanding about how hard it was and how the industry is quite hard to navigate as a startup or someone coming in, and how who you know plays such a big role in how you progress. And I knew the toughness about it when it comes to that, but I didn't really, and I also knew the toughness about the industry when it comes to like your emotional well-being, knowing how hard it is to be a creative and to struggle to get your work seen, or to feel invisible with what you're doing, and to feel rejected, or to keep trying to get that press, to get those people to look at what you're making. So I knew that side of it, but it was only when I entered Red Carpet Green Dress, which was the global design contest founded by Susie Amos Cameron, that I really had a clue that there was a whole side of this industry that was looking at what's being made, who's making it, how is it being made, who's it impacting, what is it impacting. This was a real kind of mind-blowing moment when I went online and it basically asked me to create a gown sustainably, and that's when I had to figure out, well, what is sustainable. And that's when I went on the journey. So it was in like maybe 2011. Yeah, I think that's when I kind of started to open the books and start kind of basically getting my mind blown about what was really happening in the fashion industry.
Wow, it's amazing. So you entered into the contest.
Yes, I did. And it was weird because I didn't, I had taken a break from designing. I think I mentioned before that I found the industry quite, quite difficult and quite draining as a creative person with a business background. And so I decided to stop designing for a while and just, reevaluate what I wanted to do. And I always say about life, I guess, when you're really meant to do something, you can't get away from it. It's like that thing where you're like, okay, I'm not even going to think about this thing. I'm not going to think about music or fashion or whatever that passion is. And you try and step away from it, but everywhere you go, like you're waiting to meet a friend, and like you turn around and there's this amazing billboard of this incredible gown, or you're just everything. You turn on the TV and the first one is like a kind of woman walking down the red carpet in a gown. And because I was red carpet fashion, these were the things I would be seeing when I was trying to escape, so I couldn't get away. So I went on to Vogue or something, and I was Vogue actually, and I saw a contest advertised, and I clicked on it, and what drew me in was it saying, can you design a dress for the red carpet? I didn't really read the second half of that sentence, which was like, with a sustainable twist. And that's when I just said, yeah, I can do this. I can design a dress. And to me, at that point, it was just about materials that were sustainable. I didn't know about the philosophy. I didn't know about anything else. And I entered, I just gave it a go. I shot my shot. And that's when I think 11 days later, Susie Amos Cameron called me, James Cameron's wife, and said, oh, you've won this contest, so you've got to come to LA and make your dress. And that's kind of how it all started. So really, it was a trip. It was really a trip.
Wow. What are all
Yeah.
the parameters of the contest? I'm just curious.
Well, that's a good question. So when I entered it, because it's definitely evolved a lot since then. When I entered it, it was about materials more, if I'm being honest. It was really, organic or certified materials. It was about the dyes as well, to a degree, asking you kind of what materials you would use, how would your gown be kind of colored or processed, so it was very aesthetic. But now it's evolved to be a lot more than that. So now it looks at the materials, yes, if they've got certifications, textiles, if there's anything wasted. It looks at chemical use with dyeing and finishing. It looks at even water use and where you're sourcing these materials from, and all of these different things. So it's become a lot more than that. And we've worked with people like Good On You or Greenpeace or Cradle to Cradle to finesse that kind of criteria so it's as authentic as it can be. But yes, it's definitely evolved. For me, I just found like an organic silk, and I use like a natural dye, and I didn't waste anything. I used like scraps to make the belt and stuff like that. But it definitely now it's a big move on from that, because criteria is quite important. We have to know what we're saying, and we have to be clear when we're talking to people about what we mean, because it could mean something different to them. So yeah, so it's definitely evolved.
Yeah. So how many people enter this contest?
So so the contest itself, so this is something that maybe people aren't aware of. It started as a design contest, and it went on as a design contest for 4 or 5 years. So when I entered it, it kept going as a design contest. And then it came to a point where it was becoming really tricky to keep doing it as a design contest, because the Oscars is in February. And I think anyone who knows the fashion calendar knows fashion week's in February. So that in itself is pretty stressful, because like the global fashion industry is struggling to do a lot of different things across a lot of different time zones. And then here's us popping up, looking for maybe a leading fashion house to mentor our winner, or trying to kind of get things made when there are all of these different red carpet things going on, and award ceremonies and all this stuff, and fashion week. So we stopped it because we wanted to figure out how we could do it better as a design contest. But we kept going with the element of it that was still showcasing sustainable design on the red carpet. Instead, we just worked directly with a fashion house and gave like an emerging designer internship opportunities. So it's kind of how we kept that relationship with the emerging design community going, but we just changed the way that we did it. And so it's only this year that we've reintroduced the contest after about 4 or 5 years. So it's been a bit of a gap. And it varies. We always get entries from around the globe. So this current live contest, we're still going through them and collating all the entries. But from what I've seen, there are already entries from over 40 countries, which is really cool. It really makes me happy when I see stuff like that, because it just means we're reaching a global audience. And I don't know, I think that's quite important, period,
That is really, really impressive.
Yeah, it's cool. So that's kind of, it's quite a fun thing. And it's kind of one of the things we do, but I love that it's a design community. But I mean, obviously you've got a design background as well. And I'm sure you can imagine how, it's quite exciting, I think, to have an opportunity like that, because most of the time the red carpet's for the big brands.
Yeah. So what do you win if you win the contest?
Oh, so the contest itself, so apart from the obvious kind of, they get to dress talent. So that's, there's a gown and a suit will be kind of the final winning pieces, but they also get flown over to Los Angeles. And what we do is we have a pre-Oscar event, which is a really great event to get people together from the eco and sustainable fashion community, but also the entertainment world. They come over and attend that as our guest, and kind of their travel, accommodation, living expenses are covered. They also get to present their winning design at our gala and talk to the audience, meet Susie Amos Cameron. They get internship and a mentorship opportunity. So and then there's $1,000 cash prize as well. So we've tried to kind of create something that would give hope to the design community, because when we started it, I mean, COVID had kicked in, and then the social justice movement erupted around Black Lives Matter, and it was just such a depressing time, and still is for so many people. So I know that it's not over, but we wanted to do something positive, which is why we did it in the first place. And that's why we timed it when we did, just to provide some sort of kind of optimism.
I'm so glad that you guys brought it back, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Well, we've been racking our brains about it, because we knew we'd bring it back. And when the situation started happening with COVID, we thought about the timing. That's why we called it the Sustainable Design Campaign Championing Hope, because actually that's kind of what we wanted it to represent. So yeah, that felt quite good. Quite happy about that project. And looking forward to see the winners and connect with more designers around the world.
Yeah, I'm curious, what kind of impact have you seen since you started working with Red Carpet Green Dress?
Well, for me, I think there's so many different lenses for that. So one of them is, I think the impact we've had is very much, I like to think that we were and started as ambassadors for what sustainable fashion could look like. The idea that it was something that suited a certain type of person who probably didn't wear shoes, which is so patronizing, by the way. We did a lot to take that on and say, probably there's people within the community that don't wear shoes. Okay, guys, if that's how we want to approach this. But there are also other parts of the global community that this speaks to. That, so first of all, the image thing, because I think image in fashion is important. So that bit was a big thing for us. And the impact we had was really around shaping how people see sustainable fashion and see it as something desirable and covetable, and not kind of gimmicky. But outside of that, I think the educational side is there, because I think once you've grabbed people's attention with like a jaw-dropping best dress list type of dress, and then they read about it and they start learning about it, it's great. You've got that attention. You need to kind of then give the information that helps them translate that to why it's sustainable. So the information sharing that we did, we always tried to do, give examples of things that could relate to people, dyes, fabric chosen, design processes like zero waste, the idea of your scraps are not scraps, your waste is not waste. So that was kind of another thing we did around education, I think, but also going in with design colleges, because we started as a design contest. So we would have entries coming in from across the globe, and part of those entries, there's some of them would be from emerging designers who are at fashion colleges. So getting in to have conversations with emerging designers early is really important, because I look forward to who these designers will be 10 years from now, and knowing that we had conversations with them early in their career to help them think about sustainability and to help them kind of start processing how much more there was than just this fabric looks beautiful. It's like, well, how's it been made? Where has it been made? How's it been dyed? What's the transparency? What are the certifications? What does that even mean? Getting them thinking about this early was really important, because early adopters, I think, will keep this industry moving, keep it going where it needs to go. So that was something I think we've been doing and did, and it's impactful. But I think one of the big things that we've done impact-wise is the mindset conversation, because when we do things like when we collaborated with will.i.am and did the recycled plastic suit, we had people contacting us and saying, I didn't even know this was a thing. I didn't know that there was waste or plastic that was being pulled and turned into fashion. It kind of, in their minds, something kind of clicked between, I care about waste, I do my recycling, and now there's this whole other part of fashion that connects to me more. So with everything we've tried to do, it's also bringing it home to people and helping them see themselves in the conversation. When we did the vegan shoes and the plant-based materials, so many people who are vegans or animal lovers contacted us and said, I didn't connect myself to the fashion at all. I didn't connect myself to clothing until I learned about the fact that there's a whole part of fashion that it's for people who want to not wear animal products or whatever. So it's kind of, there's so many things I get excited about, but I think ultimately maybe it's how people think about sustainable fashion. Yeah, I really believe that once a mindset shifts and people see things through a different lens and it affects how they're behaving, it's something you don't go back on, because I feel like we work in this very rare space where once you know more and understand more, it's like you can't go back. Once you're no longer maybe addicted to like a fast fashion shopping cycle because you understand what that really means, it's quite hard to fall back into those patterns. So mindset, I think, is where the battle is won.
Yeah, it's an untapped place too. I feel like there's so much room to get to the consumer, the buyer, with this story of sustainable fashion. There's education, but there's also, what do you do now that you're educated?
Exactly. what do you do with that now that you understand, apart from feel empowered, you know? Because there's that time when you're allowed to feel empowered and to feel enlightened and to feel that you're on kind of this progressive journey to better yourself, because knowledge does that to anybody. I think anyone who acquires knowledge, there's always a period straight afterwards where you feel pretty good about yourself, even if the knowledge doesn't make you feel good because of what it is. Knowing you've bettered yourself, knowing you've expanded your lens is a good feeling. And then it's like, okay, what do I do with this knowledge? How do I apply it? And sometimes maybe a lot of the conversation around what we do is full of very lofty stats and figures, and it feels like a huge problem, which people then struggle to translate to how do I apply it. So yes, like the mindset thing's important, but I think also once we know, what are the easiest next steps to keep us on this journey, you know? How do we take what we've learned and do something that we know will make a difference? And actually what will make a difference, because quite frankly, the jury's out. lots of different opinions out here, you know, and people have got their corners, you know, and they are defending them valiantly. So it's also, I guess, what do I believe is the most effective way to make an impact, and just, you know, sticking with that and not being deterred by kind of louder, more competing voices, you know?
Yeah. Would you say it has snowballed into like luxury design?
Well, that's an interesting question. So, because what you design for the red carpet is luxury, you know, so it's something that is created with such a level of care and consideration that it can't really be classified as anything but luxury. You know, the quality of the materials, the artisans pouring hours of their craft into making this thing. I legitimately get goosebumps even thinking about it, because it makes me excited when I think about some of the brands that we've worked with, and when I think about even Louis Vuitton and the beautiful dress that they made for Laura Harrier, and just the hours of intricate beading that went into kind of making that dress. So it is luxury. But I think the conversation about sustainability and luxury is a really big one, because on one hand, people feel that like you've got this thing that took a lot of time and cost a lot of money to buy, and it's not accessible. It's not whatever took a large number of the population, a large percentage of the population. But on the other hand, and that's just one of the things about it. You know, there's a lot of challenges or things that people feel resentment or frustration towards about luxury. But for me, one of the things about luxury is that it's this kind of very rare, very beautiful, very considered, durable thing. And if luxury is done well, I think that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be crafted, handmade, like rare, something you treasure. It's not meant to be a throwaway item. It's not meant to be something you have and discard. It's meant to be something you cherish. That to me is what luxury is. It's beyond, it's by its definition, it's durable. That, and when you think about sustainability, durability is at the heart of sustainability, because we're looking for things that will last. We're looking for things that will be here and will be non-disposable. They aren't designed to fall apart like most of the fast fashion conversations we're having right now around design obsolescence. So it's an interesting space, because I have so many passionate conversations with people that understand the importance of luxury and know that luxury fashion is its own market, but feel like because of the pricing of luxury that it can't be sustainable, because not many people can be part of it, or a certain kind of percentage of the population can be part of it. So I think it's a really interesting one to get into.
Yeah. Well, from what we were talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of made me think about how, well, red carpet green dress being a world
Mm-hmm.
stage,
Mm-hmm.
collaborating with big brand luxury design houses is sort
Mm-hmm.
of another form of the main stage, even if people can't buy
Yeah.
it. I mean, people
Yes.
still buy Vogue, people still buy Vanity
Yeah.
Fair, even if they can't afford what's inside of the magazine. It's almost like it's an art piece in a way.
I love that you said that, and I think it is an art piece because I think there is something visually really beautiful about these gowns that are made. But I think the other thing for us is these are really, yes, they're educational tools. Yes, they're about awareness building, and yes, they're about starting dialogue and all of that. But on a very purely artistic level as well, they're also about just inspiring a design community. And I think when you think about maybe trends or how fashion is born or how movements are born, that inspiration is important. So with all of these different pieces, and I think when you actually pick what we've kind of done with different gowns, whether it was the kind of vegetable dyed fabric from Kristen Siriano that he did for Danielle McDonald, or the kind of lab made diamonds and the lab made crystals, which have a whole conversation going on about why are we still mining so intensively for diamonds when it causes so much conflict. All of these are supposed to be all of the things I said before, but also inspiration for looking at how we can do things differently. So whereas I think, and I think when you purchase a really stunning painting, or when you purchase a piece of art that lives in your home and it inspires you, and you look at it and I don't know where it might take you, with this red carpet, it's not just about having a moment. Like, you see this stunning piece, you find out all of the depth to what went into that and what all of these different things represent to designers or to the design community, or what you can learn from it, even just as a consumer, knowing you can customize your own thing. Because I made the belt for my dress, and I did it with beads, vintage beads from an old piece of jewelry that had broken, and I incorporated them into the belt. It's about empowering us to feel creative as well, and that I think is really, really quite an important thing. But like I said, with art, it might live in your house, it might breathe, and you might look at it and be inspired. And I think we want those red carpet dresses to do the same. We want them to inspire people. And I think when you walk away with something that's inspired you, and you understand a bit more about how it's different and unique, you might just approach the way that what you buy, the questions you might ask. And one of the things we always come up against is people not understanding what sustainability is. They don't really get it. And so when we're able to use these dresses and have people talking about natural dyes, or the fabric selection, or looking inside the label and finding out what things are made of, and understanding that different fabrics have different impacts on you, on your body, not just on the global community, but on your biosphere as well. That's why natural dyes was such a big thing, because compared to synthetic dyes, their impact, their negative impact is 0 to none. It's marginal compared to synthetic. So let's have these conversations. But I like what you said about it being a stage. It is a stage, and it is a platform. Like Louis Vuitton, it's such an incredible luxury fashion house. It's an institution, and Louis Vuitton products, for anyone who's ever got one or has ever bought one for themselves, very much a luxury product, not something you would look at kind of sitting on a short cycle or having for a short period of time. It's a long-term investment piece. But that doesn't mean that everything you have to buy has to be so expensive. It's more a philosophy about quality, or just asking questions about what you're buying and understanding them more. So yeah, there's a lot of different places that conversation can go. But somebody said to me once, I think it was a friend of mine who's obsessed with cars, we were talking about cars, and they were saying, did you know that 90% of all the Porsches produced are still being driven? And I just thought that was so incredible, because to me, that's like, because Porsche is obviously a luxury, product. And but luxury is in the business of lasting worth. And I just thought that blew my mind, because we couldn't say that about a lot of the fast fashion pieces that are being made today, that 90% of all t-shirts made by XYZ are still being worn. It's like, that lasted 2 wears. It's something that I think consumers, and I don't even like the word consumers anymore, but I think we all should feel empowered to ask more questions and to learn more as much as we can. as much as we can, whenever we can, about what we're wearing and how it was made and why that matters.
You mentioned a little bit about the impact of dyes. Is there anything that has really surprised you along the way since you've been working with Red Carpet Green Dress? Like as far as fast fashion facts and environmental degradation kind of stuff?
Yeah, do you know what got me? I have been doing a fair bit of reading recently about, well, I try and read as much as I can, you know, about every and anything to do with the fashion industry. But I think one of the things that frustrated me is we have to understand that a lot of this is strategic. This is not accidental. The fashion that we're buying that's inexpensive and falls apart is designed to do that. You know, as somebody that used to be a designer myself, I know that you can design to be physically durable. Let's forget about emotional durability, which is the idea that somebody wants to hold on to something. They want it to, you know, either that it still suits their taste or they still have an emotional connection to that item, or, you know, forget that. The physical durability, that's idea of garment construction, what materials I'm choosing, the style, the cut, the fit, the manufacturing processes, how I might be ensuring or asking that fabric be treated to ensure that it is resistant to staining or odor, or the dyes I'm choosing or asking to be chosen or looking for that ensure the color holds. All of these different things, this idea of physical durability, when brands opt out of certain criteria, they are aware that as a result of that, these things will fall apart, they will fade, they will hold stains. These are choices that are made to give things to us in a certain way. There's one side of that that really makes me angry, because it means that there's a concerted effort to shortchange the consumer. There's a concerted effort to give the consumer less than they deserve, or to provide something that will not stand the test of time because it's all that people can afford. So there's all of this stuff that happens, and you could really rage about it, because ultimately what it means is for people who are on a lower price bracket or have a lower income level, who can only afford certain things, because yes, we've said buy well, choose well, make it last. That kind of mentality is important if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, you buy what you can afford, and what you can afford has been designed to fall apart. And that pisses me off, because why should a certain group of society have to buy things that aren't meant to last? As a designer myself, so I know, because I used to do occasion wear, right? So I understand with construction, which a lot of people don't necessarily understand, but with construction, there are places where you might reinforce the garment. There are places where you might use like integral, like undergarments to absorb certain things. There are ways to make so that the thing will last longer. You know, there's a science to it. It's not just, it's intentional. So the idea that fashion brands are making the choice not to provide these things and to keep things so low cost is at our cost. So I know it might sound naive, but it shocked me that it was a strategic choice. But when it comes to the dyes, I mean, I remember reading about, because in 2012 we worked with Greenpeace, or 2013 on their detox fashion. We did a collaboration with them the year that we dressed Naomi Harris. And I remember that they had identified like these 11 chemicals that were used in the manufacture of garments, and they contained like carcinogens and hormone disruptors and all this stuff. And I remember reading that some of the chemical substances that were found in pajamas could be found in a child's urine 5 days after they wore those pajamas for just one night. And it made me it was that moment of, everybody thinks, or I think a lot of people who don't work in fashion think, this has nothing to do with me. I am just too serious-minded. You know, I'm doing my PhD in XYZ, or like I'm a busy mum of 3, or like, you know, I'm a hardworking whatever. I don't have time to think about like this. I just don't. I don't have time to think about fashion. It's not important to me. It doesn't touch my life. And every single day, without fail, I'm 100% reminded, and this is what surprised me to answer your question, that we are all connected to this. Whatever your thing is, there's not a single person. Listen, if you are a parent, the fact that the way fashion is being made is affecting hormone levels to the point where you could argue that children are being coached into, just through their garments and the dyes and chemicals used, into puberty early. The fact that maybe some kids have got eczema and skin conditions because of the dyes and the materials. You know, it's funny because you often see kids' clothing and it's like cotton, or it's like organic cotton. Okay, you've used organic cotton and then you've bleached it and used synthetic dyes to make it bright pink. So what now? So yeah, so if you're a parent, it affects you, because all of these things will affect your kids. They actually do have impact. If you are anything at all, if you're a human rights lawyer or you're passionate about kind of human rights, fashion has a whole human rights issue with garment workers who's making our clothes, transparency chains, slave labor. It's all happening. You know, choose your cause. I say, choose your cause. It's all connected. If you're talking about, even if you're talking about the kind of animal rights activist, or you're somebody that really, really feels passionately about biodiversity, or you're a whale watcher, whatever, fashion is contributing in a massively devastating way to biodiversity loss because of how we're making clothes. A lot of people are not connecting the fact that the majority of the clothes we wear are made in farms and fields, you know, cotton, etc. That's where it's growing, that's where it begins. And even if they aren't, and even if they're synthetic, they're using resources like water, etc. And when you think about the fact that, or like leather and viscose, it's damaging, it's causing deforestation, and 80% of land-based biodiversity loss, 80% of land-based biodiversity depends on forests. So once you clear a forest, then the plants and animals that call it home are gone. So every single thing that you might even just talk to someone at a dinner party about that they're interested in, I can talk to you about that and we can connect it to fashion. And that's probably, I'm sorry this answer's so long, but that's my big shocker. The fact that when I started working in this industry, I thought it was a separate industry to other industries. And now I'm in this industry, I realize it touches every industry, because we all wear clothes every single day. So it's just, that's it. That's what's blown my mind.
Wow, it really is a marvel.
Yeah, that's the thing. I
Yeah,
just wish more people knew it.
it's like if you're at the dinner party and someone's like, I'm an ocean conservationist. And then someone else is like,
Yeah,
I support animal rights. And you're like, I've got all of you under one umbrella.
exactly. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's
Yeah.
talk about it. You know, let's talk about microplastics. Let's talk about synthetic materials. Let's talk about when we're washing our clothing, you know, and just the fact that when you're washing your clothing, and, you know, the impact that when you wash your kind of your synthetics and so on and so forth, and the microfibers that are shedding, that are trickling into the ocean and stuff. And let's talk about that. And even just that, you know, what they say, like, turning your clothes inside out and doing full loads. Okay, first of all, it's less wasteful, but the reason that the full load thing is so important is because the friction when you have fewer clothes in the machine creates like the microfibers to shed. It encourages them to shed. They go into the water, that leads to thinning, that leads to holes. That's why your stuff is falling apart. That's why you need to buy more. But also they then ultimately end up in our oceans and affect sea life. We're finding them in, you know, the turtles' bellies. Let's talk about it. You know, choose your topic and we can go ... you know. And that's why fashion's so incredible, because everyone's in this conversation with us, and the best conversation is often with the person that doesn't realize they're in the conversation. And they're like, oh wow, I'm so in this conversation. You know the one, Courtney, the one that's like, I take myself too seriously to think about fashion. That one.
I know so many people like that.
Right?
It is the age. It is the age of the I take myself too seriously person.
Right?
Especially with,
Right?
oh my God, Reddit and Facebook.
There you go.
And okay, so having conversations, that's one thing. What
Mm.
else can people do to be better fashion consumers?
Honestly, stop consuming so much. Have a conversation with yourself about, I mean, I know this might not be what you want to hear, guys, but there's something about the fact that we are feeling like we need to buy so much to feel so much. I don't know, like I have enough faith in my purchases that I can spend more time with them. I mean, I can't remember the last time I went shopping. I really can't. But like that aside, when I get stuff, I want to play with it for a while. I want to enjoy it for a while. We're just kind of getting stuff and wearing it once and chucking it to the back of wherever. And it's a problem. So I think it might be not the funnest conversation to have, but the first thing I always say is like, why are you buying so much? Why do you need to buy so much? Once you get over that, and if we identify the fact that you actually do need to get these items, that's one thing. But like, even I was reading a Bernardo study, and it said that like it was studying British people, and basically the top contenders for like one-time wear fashion were holidays, weddings, festivals, and barbecues. So this is when most people will just buy the thing once, wear it, and chuck it away, never wear it again, or just put it at the back of their wardrobe. So I think there's a psychology here of when I'm going to the wedding or when I'm on holiday, I don't want to repeat. And I just think that's just doesn't make sense. Like, you're still as beautiful whether you've worn it once or you've worn it twice. Like, it doesn't make you anything else. It just might make you feel good for the moment. Once we've gone past that and you've decided you need to purchase it, if this is still where you are, people, if you've still decided that buying the thing is important, then we can address that. So I think some of the things that I think that you can do just to kind of be better at consuming are a bit of research. I always make this point, but like when people are going on holiday, how is it they ought to manage to like research the best place to get like the most random dish? They're like, oh yeah, there's this particular fish that has 3 heads and it tastes amazing, and I'm going to go to that restaurant that's in like it's by the third palm tree under the like canoe. Like, what? What? How did you find this place? Oh, Google. Okay, great. So if you can Google that random place that serves 3 headed fish, please take a moment and just Google some sustainable fashion brand, or just Google sustainable fashion. I want to learn a bit more about it. Do a bit of research. Trust you can hold the knowledge. That's one thing. Trust you can hold the knowledge, because I know it can feel intimidating, but it isn't. Once you're in it, it will start becoming this thing that's just very interesting to do research. And then if you're shopping, I mean, I always say a couple of things, like, as much as possible, try and buy the natural materials, because ultimately, for breathability, for the health of your system and your skin, I just prefer a natural material than petroleum, which is what polyester is. I'd say consider looking for like organic or certified products if there's that marking on there, because it's just good to know that there are no harmful chemicals or dyes if you're able to find that. But then if it's organic, I always opt for like the natural colors. I don't want to wear I don't personally like wearing really brightly colored stuff, because I know what kind of dye needs to be used to give me that. Purchasing secondhand is a big one, because ultimately we're still making too much new stuff. Secondhand is not the saints territory, because there's a whole thing around secondhand fashion and the volume that we're shipping to other parts of the world and making them take it when they don't want it, but because we are just so crazy with our shopping. So don't feel like you're doing a good thing all the time by buying secondhand. Like, the problem is we're buying too much anyway. And look after your clothes better, because I think the agreed consensus is that the majority of your environmental impact with your clothing happens once you have it. So it's how you wash it, how you treat it. Like we talked about before, like, increase the active life of your clothes. And then I think the last thing for me personally is support independent fashion houses. I haven't been to the high street for ages. It stresses me out too much anyway. But I like independent fashion houses. I like kind of discovering people off a beaten path, knowing I'll be wearing something that's different and not everyone will have. It makes me feel unique, and it helps me feel like my personality is something I can explore more with my clothes. So just do a bit of research and support those independent designers. And then when you're finished with it, pass it on, don't bin it. So even if you're not going to charity shop, just see if there's someone in your family that can have it. That's considering it if it hasn't completely fallen apart because it cost you 2 cents. You know, there's that. But if it's still got life in it, then by all means, try and pass it on.
Are there any specific brands that you would recommend?
Ooh. So for me, like the brands I love this brand called Canelle. So they're spelled Kanelle. And they're an Indian brand, and they just use the most beautiful silks. And I think it's called Chandri silk. I've got to get the name right, but it's just so light, and on my skin, it feels incredible, and it's very transformational. So the stuff I have of theirs, I could literally throw a jumper over a dress and wear it in the day, and then wear the dress on the red carpet with shoes in the night. Like, I love their pieces. I love this British designer called Mercy Me. She's like a fast and free fashion girl. So she doesn't use like zips, buttons and stuff like that. The stuff is, you can kind of tie it in different ways so that you can breathe in it. Oh, I do like Another Tomorrow as well. And you have a label, so I need to explore yours as well.
I'll send you a link.
Send me a link. Remind me what it's called though.
Yeah, it's called Holding Court, and the website is it's holdingcourtinc.com.
Yeah, so I need to check you out as well though.
Amazing. I wanted to ask you if you've had a favorite moment during your time with Red Carpet Green Dress.
I mean, I have to say it was when Susie made me CEO, because being on the journey with Red Carpet Green Dress, and from the beginning when it was the design contest and Susie and I were going into meetings to try and convince people that this was going to be good, or, you know, when we pitched for the Academy to have a longer relationship with them, we've had so many milestones together. And it would be remiss of me to not acknowledge that we're going through a period of time right now where people are really just discovering racism in the fashion industry. Like, to me, it's mind-blowing that people didn't really know that this was happening. But hey, this is where we are. And for me, seeing all the conversation that's happening around about how can we give center these voices, how can we share the mic, you know, there's all this stuff that's being said, and I feel very frustrated it's taken so long, happy it's happening, hopeful that it won't just be lip service, all the feelings that you would feel. And then at the same time, I feel fortunate that I very much always had the mic passed to me. With Susie specifically, I'm talking about Red Carpet Green Dress. I'm not talking about my experiences before that, because that definitely wasn't the case. But with Susie specifically, she's always passed me the mic. She's always welcomed me leading meetings. She's always given me credit for what I've suggested. I've never felt in Red Carpet Green Dress invisible or tokenized ever. So when she made me CEO, it just felt like the ultimate recognition of how much I've poured into Red Carpet Green Dress, and the acknowledgement that she saw how much this work means to me. And not having your voice undermined, or having somebody say, you know, you lead this, or your lens is important on this, your perspective is important on this, and not just saying it, but showing they mean it by listening to what you say and allowing you to do what you need to do, means a lot. When I think about fashion, it's like 80% of the students at kind of most of the world's leading fashion colleges are women. And in apparel stores, 75% of the workforce is female. And they're usually serving female customers. I mean, I think this is mad, but then when you look at leadership, I think they say 12.5% of apparel companies on the Fortune 1000 list are led by women. 12%. So to know that there's such little kind of visibility just for women, and then I know that the same dynamics are echoed for women of color. When I was made CEO, it just it was a real highlight. I don't think it kind of gets better than that for me. All the different things we've done are amazing, but when you talk about reaffirming somebody and something that you'll never forget, you know, that moment you became CEO is just right up there. So yeah, I would say that.
That is so cool. Seriously. I feel like I've asked most of questions or had one answered in one way or another. Let,
Um, Let me think. There was one about who I admire, but I really struggled with
yes.
that because the thing for me, I think, with this whole thing is it's what I was saying earlier about who brings sustainability to who. And one of my things about the fashion industry right now is I'm so tired of how we seem to be celebrating and electing the same leaders again and again and again. And these leaders don't necessarily represent a global community. They serve and represent a small group of society. Lots of my kind of people I look up to, mainstream fashion probably wouldn't have heard of. Like, there's a lady I really admire and respect called Wanjira Matai. And so she's the VP and regional director for Africa at the World Resources Institute. But apart from that, she's got all of these incredible titles. Like she's the chair of the Wangari Maathai Foundation. She's the former chair of the Green Belt Movement. She's got 20 years of experience in like advocating for social and environmental change on like local and international platforms. That's somebody I respect a great deal because they're kind of coming in on like a policy strategy advocacy level. Her mum founded the Green Belt Movement. Wangari Maathai, she's one of the most influential Africans in the world. You know, she's incredible. And so people like that I really admire. Will most of the sustainable fashion community know about her? Probably not, maybe, I don't know. But just women like that really kind of inspire me. And the fact that she's a woman of color, that she's a Black woman, it feels important I have that, because if I were to rely on the industry to give me those visible figures, I'll probably be waiting for a long time, you know? So yeah, I'd probably say her. She's pretty awesome.
Okay, well, I do want to ask you, where can we
Of
connect with you
course.
online?
Sure. So online, my handles are at I am Samata. So I am underscore Samata. And through Red Carpet Green Dress, we've got at Red Carpet Green Dress. So just connect with me there. I've got samatahome.com as my website. But, you know, it's quite easy to reach me. I'm about.
Great. Have a great rest of your night. And
Thank you so much.
all right.
Okay. All right. Take care. All right. Bye.
Bye. A big thank you again to Samata of Red Carpet Green Dress. We can all hope to be as passionate as she is to make lasting change in the fashion industry. And I'm really looking forward to the Oscars this year to see the winners of the design contest. A very cool work they're doing. Now you can keep up with her at her Instagram at I am Samata, and of course at Red Carpet Green Dress. And as a quick little aside, no matter where you are in the world right now, if you have the privilege of living in a democracy, your country depends on you to shape its identity and its impact. Now, as far as environmental protection goes, your local ecosystems depend on the policies your elected officials put into place. So you have a say in what the future holds. So use your power and use your privilege and vote. Let's do this. Thank you for listening, and that's a wrap.
Hey, this is Erin in St. Augustine, Florida. ES Now is a Holding Court production and is written and produced by Courtney Behringer. The music is by Parker Ainsworth, fact-checked by Justin Howard. And a very special thanks to Alexandra Shook.